but that's part of it. That's certainly part of it. And apparently, hi everybody, we're live.
Evening, everyone. We're going to be going into dental care very quickly.
Yeah, well, dental care and healthcare, because I just sat down with my primary care physician this morning, and I'm a bigger dude. This is the first time I've been to the doctor in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Since pandemic, my weight has kind of gone not ideally. Put it that way, right?
You're carrying pandemic weight.
Exactly.
It's a worldwide phenomenon at the moment.
And so they talked to me about options. One of which is a weekly injection that you just stab your stomach with. It's actually cleared for diabetics, but it's had some really promising results with weight loss, and I don't want to send everybody to their doctors asking for this thing, but my doctor is really great. They showed this graph, and it's a very confusing graph actually when you look at it, but it's only because it's reversed. But you have different weight loss medications, right? And you have the effectiveness of the placebo is in the light gray, and then the actual thing is in the black. And so the middle one here, with a 16% average body percentage weight lost, is the one that I think I'm going to go for.
Oh,
it's a little stabby stab.
Yeah, I did a bunch of that before Christmas. I did a one of these this year. A guy sort of gave me advice and stuff, and weekly weigh-ins and stuff like that. And I did a 13-week course, and lost 2.5 stone, nearly 3 stone. So yeah, Americans do stone, don't they? So you actually understand it. I was doing this with a bunch of Europeans, and they were doing kilograms. I don't know. It's stones.
You can say kilograms. Kilograms, we can convert, right? I think.
It's 12 pounds to 12 pounds to a stone.
I'm not sure.
How many pounds in a stone? I should know this. This should be easy. Stone. I love Google. 14 pounds in a stone. So,
dang, that's pretty good. Hey, if anyone watching or listening is on a health journey and has had a positive or negative experience, why don't you share it in the comments?
Well, initially, a negative experience would be a good thing because that means you're losing weight.
Well, okay, I guess if you look at it that way, smartass.
It's been that sort of week. In fact, it's been that sort of month at the moment.
It really has. I've had 2 chiropractor visits, a dentist appointment, a primary care physician appointment, blood tests, and some additional stuff. I don't know. All in the span of a couple of days. And anyway,
so you know yourself really well right now.
I'm trying. I'm trying. And it's this whole thing has really made me crave sort of a unified interface to look at all my health stuff. Imagine if intermittent fasting. I have also been doing intermittent fasting starting at the beginning of the year, and I find it good. There's an app that I use called Fastic that just tracks your it tracks how long you've been fasting. And fortunately, this morning when I went to go get blood tests, they were like, "How long have you been fasting for?" I opened up the app and said 14 hours.
Oh, right. See, when I first started doing it, I did intermittent fasting as part of the bit I did before Christmas, and it was really good because they were saying, right, if you do it small to start with, so don't eat past 9 o'clock in the evening, and then skip breakfast. If you go all the way through to lunch, then you've just done a whole bunch of fasting and you didn't even realize it. And I was like, oh yeah. And then if you just skip lunch as well and then go on to dinner, then there you go. That's 24 hours done. And actually, so if you're starting off the night before, then that works really well. But then he was starting to push it a bit further. So missing breakfast I found dead easy because this whole, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, it was very much the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You must do it. And I'm like, well, maybe in old times, but it made sense that actually I don't really need it. It's an easy meal to skip because I'm still asleep, so I don't realize I missed it. But then I would sort of skip lunch, but then in the evening I would come home, say about 5 o'clock in the evening from the office, and it was go to the place that Amanda, my wife, or the kids would have to have something to throw at me as soon as I walked in the door, because apparently I got a bit hungry. So apparently they could tell when I was on a fasting thing because I was slightly tetchy. And so they'd just throw food at me as soon as I walked in. And but the whole low carb thing works really well. My problem is I just like carbs a lot.
Yeah, same. I did keto before. That was pretty successful. I mean, like there's things that work, and I find one of the things that works for me the best is when I limit myself in some capacity, right? Like, I think with carbs, the rule is very simple. Eat as little carbs as possible, right? With intermittent fasting, it's only eat between these hours. Anything outside those hours you can't do, right? And I think that's why, if you count your calories, that works too. But I'm not so great with like the composition of meals, right? So I'm good with the limitations, but not the composition. I'll take a hamburger and fries any day, as long as I'm counting the calories, and and I know that's not the healthy way to do it, but I do find that those like hard limits for me are what I find work best. I was gonna say, so this whole experience this week, and I guess over the last month or so, has had me really craving some sort of unified interface to like look at all of my health data, right? Like I want to look at my dental records next to my health records and my blood tests, and I want to see that next to even my Fitbit data, and I want to see that next to my optometry data, my eye data, right? Like I want to see all this together and kind of get like and maybe, having all this stuff tied together. This is just a pitch for somebody if they want to put this together. Make an API that, kind of connects to all these different services used by all these different healthcare professionals, right? And maybe there might be some clues that like in your eyes and your mouth and your Fitbit data that contribute to your health factors that maybe you didn't see before. And I guess that would be the business model, right? You have users anonymize their data, and so you can look at it and provide potentially recommendations or care and insights. I don't know. I find myself really craving that, because right now I'm like I said, I'm looking at multiple papers with my stuff on it, and there's apps, of course, but like.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, certainly, my UK experience is that healthcare professionals. So most of our healthcare is joined up, and so doctors and it's sort of joined up actually. Optometry and hearing, and that isn't necessarily in the same place, but they all have the all of your notes, so that would work. But we as consumers don't actually really get to see them notes. I think we can ask for them. I think we could see, but also that you don't know what doctors are writing anyway, so they have their own special code, and so you wouldn't see it. So it is interesting the fact that we don't actually have easy access to our own data in a way that is meaningful to us,
right? Or even the ability to like communicate things across specialties, right? So like let's say I am taking a new medication and I want that to be sent out to my optometrist, to my dentist, to, basically anywhere else that might be relevant, that might have an interaction with that medication, especially, an adverse reaction. It'd be cool to have that all synced up. And then, you have apps like, oh, hey, I bought this today because doctor's orders blood pressure. Like what if, this synced up to everything too, and you could just get a big picture of your health. There's got to be a market for that, and there's laws, I'm sure, that prevent it from happening in in a way that makes sense. But like, I don't know. It's just
I think also probably the official medical domain, the professionals in that domain would probably be against it for.
They're probably lobbying against it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, probably for two reasons. One is that that's their specialty field, and actually that's where they get paid the big bucks, is because we don't understand that stuff. But two, I think we are already bad enough at looking at a little bit of data, going onto the internet and realizing that just from that little bit of whatever it is that you're suddenly going to die in the next 30 seconds. The fact that we just can't, we're very bad at self-diagnosis already, becoming hypochondriacs, but would having that information just make us worse, or would it make us better? Actually, if we had our entire picture in front of us and we could actually contextualize things a bit better, would that mean that we'd be less hypochondriacs? I'd like to say that that we would become less hypochondriacs, but I don't think that's the case. I know even I can be, even though I do try and not do it, there are times when I do sit there and go, well, actually, I've got this and this, that means this, and therefore I should do way too many things.
Yeah.
We should do some show notes.
Yeah, we should, because I haven't touched them today, and I see you've put a lot in there.
So we did so much last week that I felt I needed to step up. I've chucked in 4 it came froms.
Excellent. Let me take a look at this, because I did look at the show notes, and I think you have a great outline, and I think I am good and prepared to talk about any of these things at length. I have no problems there. So yes, let's get through the it came froms, and I think we'll be good on the show notes.
So I've thrown 4 in there that I'd sort of checked up during the week that I thought would be kind of interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one around best and worst UX experience this week, I thought would be contextual. Also, I didn't know whether that was good or not. I just thought it was interesting.
Interesting, yeah, for sure. And I thought that's kind of my or was the impetus for one more thing. It's kind of like, hey, what have you seen this week that's been awesome? But then we slowly evolved that into more bantery. That's okay. Mute problem. Oh, geez.
Just so I like this idea when I must have got through nearly in fact I got through an entire week this week without actually accidentally leaving myself on mute. I'm trying to take that as a bit of a plus nowadays. But the reason I think that's quite interesting is that actually for both Zoom and for Teams, the way there should be just a simple key button press just to turn yourself on and off mute easily without having to do a mouse button press. And none of them have it. They're all either a combination button. I mean, Teams is majorly complex comparatively.
Well, Zoom has the push to talk, so you push down the space bar.
It is, but I want to be able to switch it on and off. I don't like push to talk. So I want to be able to press it, and I press
sure
space
you can
bar.
toggle it.
I don't think. I think I might have. Not tried hard enough.
Like, look, old school chat software like Ventrilo, like that had it figured out. You could either toggle on or off, and I imagine that those exist in the software today. I don't know if it's worth a whole discussion. We can talk about it here, but maybe another one instead of that one.
That's why I give us 4. The next one around Teens I thought was interesting actually, because there's a whole age thing and there's a whole actually should it be a website anyway, and etc. Given that most teens don't use websites anymore.
That's heavy hitting.
Which one?
The topic anyway. The teens. We could use that as a springboard for like how to interact with special populations. And I mean, there's any human research training will teach you how to take special care with those specialized populations, at-risk populations. Children are one of those.
But also it springboards us into looking at what the next interaction platforms are, because when when I deal with other stuff, we talk about, how do we do it on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. Well, actually, 11 to 17-year-olds aren't using Facebook and Twitter. They're using Snapchat and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I had okay, sorry. I had a question it come up in our Slack that I do want to make sure that we talk about because it was a good question. And so there's one. We can talk about one for sure. It's about accredited versus not accredited HFES universities. And I'd be curious to get your input as someone who has not had classical training at a university.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. I've just put one at the bottom actually about titles, role titles. Are they important or not?
I like that. That's actually one of the ones that I was looking at earlier this week. I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it up because I really like that. That one's number 2. Number 3. I don't know if I'm crazy about the sign up one either, to be honest. Those are interesting little like
short sharp ones.
Yeah, they're almost like opinion based. I guess what is the word I'm looking for here? They're almost like you should research this based on your own domain, and this is not like a generic knowledge question.
There's one that came in this evening around skills regarding HFE and robotics.
I saw that one. I'm pondering that one. I don't know if I know enough about that domain to speak intelligently about it.
It's never stopped me in the past. It's interesting because clearly robotics is where we are at now and clearly going further in the future. I quite like that. I think that could be quite a. To be fair, the answer is yes. Clearly, we need them, and we're going to need more of them. There you go. I've just done it.
I saw one that was more along the lines of like, do I go on to do a master's if
was that the HCI one?
It was something like right? Yeah. Do I go on to do a master's if I have a bachelor's in human factors or HCI or whatever it is? It's like I don't.
There was another one here, sort of similar. Would I be able to get a job if I had an undergraduate HCI certificate?
Where is that one?
That's yesterday at 2:00 or 8 minutes past 2.
What date? Sorry.
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
In fact, I couldn't paste it. Because if nothing else, I can go in the bank as well.
Oh yeah, that's not the one I was thinking of. There's definitely here.
Right. I'm going to take these ones. I'll put them in the bank for now.
Here it is. What's the job prospect difference with a graduate certificate versus a? Oh wait, no, that wasn't it. Undergrad, after graduation. Okay. Well, that's not it. Where was it? I'm really struggling with finding where this question was at. Oh well. It's gone. I've lost it. Sorry, everyone.
That might have been like the best question ever, and you just don't care about it.
Maybe I misremembered. I'm not sure. I knew I should have marked it. That's what I should have done. Well.
There was one, or was this last week? MBA versus HCI degree.
Maybe that was it.
So I think 10th. How many days ago was that? Oh yeah, we must have talked about that last week. That's over a week ago. Desperate for help with statement of purpose. Why do people ask for other people to write these things for me? Are you a salaried employee, independent contractor, or freelancer?
Oh, statement of purpose. How do you feel about statements of purposes? Oh, well, I mean that specific question is asking for other people's examples, but like, how do you write about your purpose? Like, that is a hard thing to do. I remember struggling with that when I was applying to grad schools.
See, I was lucky because I didn't have to.
Yeah, I know.
Well, actually, because of my undergrad route, I didn't even have to apply to university because I did it through the military, and therefore I had one university to go to, and as long as I got the minimum grades, I was going to that university. So I didn't have to go and apply. All I had to choose was the course that I wanted to do, and there was only one real course that dealt with computing and computer programming, which is what I was big into at the time, and therefore I was like, okay, I'll go and do that one. And as long as I got, I think it was 2 C's at my A levels, then that's where I was going, and I did. So seeing my daughter go through all the application process for university at the moment, she's like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm like, literally no idea. So that's where Amanda's much more used than I am, because she actually had to do the whole job properly. But that was interesting. I was talking recently to some university staff, some university lecturers, where we were talking about writing statements of purpose and that type of thing. They're like, literally, we rarely get a chance to read it, or it can you normally, because the criteria for getting into the course is so based on grades and things like that, that actually the statement of purpose rarely makes actually that much of a difference. So.
Yeah, I've not seen it from the academic side. Only writing it, right? And like, I don't know, if I were to approach a statement of purpose today, how would I approach it, and how would you approach it? And like that might be a fun discussion, right? Because I'd approach it very differently today than I would, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I guess that's also to do with positioning, though, isn't it? Because chuck it in. Let's talk about it. I think that's worth doing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do it, because I am struggling right now to even figure out how I might talk about this, but I still think it's a great.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes it fun, right?
Did you grab it?
I'm just grabbing it now.
Okay. I lost
there
it.
We go.
I'm looking for it. Okay, you got it. Okay, cool. So I think we're good with our notes, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's
should probably strip out the bank, actually, because the bank is quite huge. We just scroll past it every week.
We do. You know what, though? I'm okay with keeping the bank, because you never know. You
just might need it.
when it's like, even this week, I was like, shit, we're gonna have to dig it in the bank.
Cool. That's
and at our lab kickoff meeting, I did mention there were some work threads that I want to chase down that might actually benefit having that bank there.
Okay.
So keep CO. And this is Cool.
Right on.
Got those. I am just looking over one more time to see if there's anything else we need to include here. We are, I guess, 8 minutes out from the official start of the show. So we'll see. But I think just in terms of show notes, it is pretty complete. So thank you, sir, for stepping in today while I stepped out and took care of my health.
No worries. It's what being a team's all about.
That is true. Teamwork.
Is that the right episode number? Yes, it is, isn't it? Because it was 231 last week.
232.
See, I've been doing mine in seasons.
Yes.
I've literally just started season 4.
Sometimes I cannot believe that we have done 232 episodes of this thing, and you've been around for when did you start on the show? Because at some point I just need to make you like a permanent resident on our website of like, hey, you are a host, and include you in the show description. I was thinking about that today. I was like, shit, I should probably.
I can't remember when I started. Was it September that I started chatting to you on Twitch? And it was around that sort of time then Blake started his new role and stuff. And yeah,
that sounds about right. Timeline-wise,
it all happened quite quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Well, here I have a way that we can check. If you go on over,
you should be able to go on the website, and it should tell you.
Official website. Yeah, hang on. I will bring it up here for everybody watching along. Let's see here. So if you go on over to our official website, and you scroll all the way to the bottom here, you'll see the hosts, and this is where I was saying we gotta include Barry on there because we have some of our lab members, and I gotta update that too. Our lab members. If you come all the way down here to guests, we should see. Oops. Accidentally called my wife just now. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just I didn't mean to, and she knows I'm podcasting right now. So you've been on with us for 16 episodes. That's insane.
Really?
16 episodes, yeah. Well, because I guess the team sees that you did, and the 2021 recap, and
so when did I?
Yeah, 219 was the first episode we had you on.
That was September, wasn't it? End of September.
Was September 24. Yeah. Look at that.
A quarter of a year. Over a quarter of a year.
Yeah. I think, well, this is going to be rather sad when I don't know how to handle this with the website. So when I move you over to a permanent host, what does that do for... Because you're no longer a guest. I can't call you a guest. And so like I can't see what episodes you were on. I just at some point have to say you're a part of it. And people will be disappointed if they go back before 219 and you're not there.
But then I guess there would be a... Yeah, I was going to say... I don't know. I'll just leave it as a guest. It's fine.
I guess you were technically a guest.
Technically a guest in these ones until you move it over, then... Yeah, what do I need? Like a year's worth of proving myself before...
Nah, man. That's like 3 months. Which I think we're there. September... So October, November, December. Yeah, you're there. You're there. Yeah. We're good. You've been on the show for a quarter of a year at this point. And so, yeah, if you're not a permanent resident of the Human Factors cast, I don't know what it would take.
Blood and stuff.
All right. Let's see here. We have 3 minutes out. Do you have anything fun to talk about in those last 3 minutes?
Fun things? No, the fun thing I'm saying for my one more thing anyway. Okay. So I'm going to leave that there because that was about something I did today, which was quite bizarre but amusing. Though actually, I could talk about that. So in my one more thing, I'm going to be talking about the Electra did to human factors and ergonomists in Iran. And so
I saw. I saw you posted about that.
Yeah, but the weird thing was, we originally agreed going to do it at 12 o'clock my time. So, and then again, I'd had a meeting finish at 11, and I was like, I've got myself half an hour. I messed around a bit. I went back to the house to say hello to the family before I jumped into this thing, and then I get a message from. I checked my phone, got a message. We're here waiting for you. 11:30. What's going on? So oh no, we changed it on the poster. Didn't you see? I was like,
oh no,
dude, it's in Persian. How am I meant to understand it? Yeah, they changed it on the poster, but didn't actually change my, the invite bit. And I was like, okay, so I had to literally run back up to the end, up into here. Thankfully, I'd set things up because I was trying to work out how I was going to set my screens up and stuff. And so it was there ready to go, but I was just like, oh, crikey.
Yikes. Yeah. Almost like getting a message from me at like 10 p.m. going, where are you?
Well, that's what made me laugh, because I was like, oh, I'm not immune to time zone issues. And they're like, and then he's messaging me going, no, we did change it to 11:30. You should have seen that on the poster. And I was like, okay, oops, my bad. But anyway, being the consummate professional that I am, I jumped in and delivered the goods. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Wow, I'm just now searching Twitter for what's trending. Why is Netflix down 20% in after hours? Yikes! Wow.
That's like the time where like WhatsApp went down. I just happened to go away on business, and I was like, well, who am I going to talk to now? And like Facebook chat was down. I was like, I can't talk to anybody. I might have to actually ring somebody up and actually have a proper conversation.
Oh, I should have clarified. Netflix stock.
Oh, Netflix stock. Okay.
20%.
Oh, what are they selling?
Insane.
Or are they merging with somebody?
I don't know.
So you wouldn't expect it to go down for a merger. Depending on who it was with.
I guess now's the time to buy. Not a financial advisor, but
I don't do stock. I'm not that much. I don't mind taking certain risks, but I just, yeah,
it's gambling. Gambling.
I just don't know what I'm doing. And the chances. I mean, I have played with the fantasy market type thing, but yeah, not so much. Actually, just before we do go live, Rams won the first game of the playoffs. We're very excited.
Is that good?
That is good.
I don't know.
I'm a new convert to American football. It's amazing. It's the only sport I actually follow now.
Oh, geez.
And because I don't really follow other sport as such, but this I've really got into now. It'll last a couple of months, and then it'll all wear off.
Yeah, well, season's almost over, isn't it? Superb
is.
Owl is coming up here pretty quick, right?
We're in the like I say, we just got the playoff season to go. We're very close to the Super Bowl, and the LA Rams are, we're on the right track. See, I know all about it now. I've
look at you! Wow, you sound like you know what you're talking about. I don't know from someone on the outside. All right, well, we're gonna take just a quick break, and we'll be back to start the show. So stick with us.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody. It is episode 232. Wow. Right off the bat here.
You'd say.
Yeah, I should probably redo that. All right, ready? Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is episode 232. We're recording this live on January 20th, 2022. Lots of twos in there, and this is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, good evening. We do have a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about living your entire life in the metaverse. And later, we're going to take some of the questions from the community about whether or not you want to attend accredited versus non-accredited HFES master's programs, whether or not job titles are truly important, and let's talk about statement of purposes. That's also an interesting topic. But first, just a quick community update. We are still taking applications for the Human Factors Cast Digital Media Lab. If you are interested in that, please let us know. Reach out to us, and we'll be happy to have a conversation with you about what the lab can do for you. All right, we know why you're here. You're here for Human Factors News, so let's go ahead and get into it. Yes, we have quite the interesting story this week. Barry, why don't you break it down for us?
So the story is, experts say people will soon live their entire lives in the metaverse. So do you ever watch films like Ready Player One or The Matrix, where you just plug yourself in or put on the suit and you're there in the virtual environment, able to look how you wish and do what you want? Tired of that day-to-day grind, want to travel the world, see amazing things, and even transform into an entirely new person? Well, according to these people, you're in luck. Experts believe you'll soon be able to live your whole sad life in the metaverse. The director of consulting for Future Today Institute told the New York Post she believes that a large proportion of people will be in the metaverse in some way by 2030. Whilst many will be using it only for work, she believes that it will play a bigger role for others. In fact, they added that will live the majority of their waking lives, waking hours, jacked in. AR wearables may be as pervasive as smartphones today. The CEO of 3D software startup Cesium told the Post. He added that he believes that the products like Facebook Oculus headsets might one day completely replace cell phones. Though we're still a way off from that, and even that 2030 prediction is very likely overly ambitious. Metaverse technologies are still woefully archaic, as anyone who's ever worn an Oculus product for more than half an hour can probably attest. So while some companies are jumping onto this metaverse train in a big way, the technology is still fairly unrefined and limited to a relatively small number of use cases like video games and deeply unpopular concerts. It's probably a bit harsh. But they do admit that fully realized metaverse, such as Necromancer or Ready Player One, is likely far off into the future, saying that if you're asking when we'll all be running around Neo-like in the Matrix, it's probably a bit further out than 2030. So, Nick, where are you with the metaverse? Are you ready to jack in, or do you just want to tell it to jack off?
Did you workshop that one before the show?
I did that. Was it good or what?
Wow. Look, so, man, this in the far future, maybe life will be so abysmal on this planet that we will need a permanent form of escapism. In the near term, no, not at all. This story is an interesting one, and I'm really glad both our patrons and the general public chose this story tonight, because this is one that we were kind of teasing last week about virtual reality and really all this stuff. I am curious on what your thoughts on this article are, just gut check, and then I want to talk about what the metaverse actually is before we get into a little bit more deeper discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just there with kind of what you said. Like, really, are we really talking about this right now? I can see the appeal to a certain extent. You know, we've all watched various films and things like that, and read books where you like I say, you dock into your station, and you can see a number of advantages. That you know, you can be who you want and that type of thing, but you do have to stop being a teenager at some point. And there is this thing, human contact. I mean, there's so many people now, especially I think with the pandemic and lockdowns happening, that you really now, I guess, relish or understand or at least appreciate human contact when you haven't been able to see people for so long. So I can see more online happening, and I can see the better we can integrate with online, getting away from keyboard, mice, and having to use screens and stuff. That is all brilliant. That will enable us to have a greater experience. But I can't see us going to that point of living our lives online in the way that this article suggests, because of, well, a whole lot of issues that I dare say we're going to get into. So, enough about what I think about it. What is the metaverse? What do you think? What do you believe the metaverse is?
Yeah, let's talk about the metaverse. This is a really ambiguous term when you actually think about what it could be. And I think about the metaverse in the same way that I think about virtual reality, where virtual reality is traditionally thought of as like you put these VR goggles on and you're in this 3D computer animated environment. And I tend to think of it a little bit more broadly than that. Virtual reality is anything that takes you out of what you're doing and puts you either mentally or physically or metaphysically in a different environment. And so this could be anything as simple as like storytelling to me, right? You are transported to another world when you are reading a book. And somebody is so vibrant with their words that they're able to paint a picture of what it's like to be there. And if it's in, first person, the book, then you're able to transport yourself into that environment. I think that's a broader version of virtual reality. I think when we talk about the metaverse, to me, this is just as ambiguous because you could very easily replace metaverse with internet and it would largely have the same uh, conceptual basis behind it. I think when we talk about metaverse, I think that the broad understanding of it is these virtual spaces in which you are navigating through or interacting with in a 3D environment. So I think that's what people think of when they think of these metaverses, right? You have some sort of virtual avatar and you can go from different environment to different environment and interact with either other people in that environment or other characters in that environment, and the purpose of those environments is for a variety of reasons. It could be like, you could be in a mental health space where you are meditating, or you could go into a game space where you're actually just playing a video game with your friends, or a watching space where you're watching a TV show with others, or this, if we want to get really immersive, some sort of shared space where there's immersive storytelling happening all around you, and you're able to witness it from your perspective. And so there's a lot of things that the metaverse is meant to encompass, or that the current vision of the metaverse encompasses. And I think there are a lot of different issues when we think about actually living in this environment. I want to get your take on the metaverse. What is it to you before we start jumping into some of these concepts?
See, this is where I think it's quite interesting, because we look at where we're at now and where you're right. When we talk about the metaverse, we get into automatically assume it's an immersive environment. You're wearing some sort of goggles, or it's visual, it's audio, it's bringing all that together. It is not where you're at now. But then when I just sort of break down that word meta, it is all about just data, or added data. And when you said it's about, it's just fundamentally the internet is that kind of it, because you could on one level argue that what we're doing right now, we're in two different countries, two different time zones, coming together through the internet to provide a almost a visual and audio experience for other people. Is that not the metaverse? Well, probably not. Well, probably not what people's imagination of it would be, because we're not wearing goggles, we're not in some sort of hyper realistic environment. So yeah, I don't know. I think it does have to include the environment thing, because that's what the people are led to believe it is. But I think actually it could be a lot simpler than that, in what we're doing. But yeah, I think, like I say, it's ambiguous. I think somebody's got to make a lot of money off it fundamentally.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of different definitions of the metaverse, and there's a lot of different concepts of what it could be and what it is. But let's talk about some of the human factors issues with being online all the time, and specifically with living life in the metaverse, and how all this kind of plays into the human factor side of the house. We have this broken down by a couple different categories: physical issues, mental health, social issues, environmental issues, and control issues. Where do we start, Barry? What do you want to tackle first?
Well, when I was starting to look at the issues around this, it is really interesting when you think about it that you've got to look at the human elements, the human factors of this in two different spaces. So I'm actually taken as given that the interface that you interact with, so that metaverse, the visual aspects and the audio, that they're good. I mean, they will evolve over time, and we know about good usability in that respect to make things engage. Though there is still a lot of work to be done in that space. What really gripped me was the idea, if we're going to live in that metaverse, what are the things we need to consider in the real or the physical universe, our everyday living, that we would need to work out a way of existing in between the both. So to start off with, I mean, physical issues. Let's the fundamentals of your body needs to hydrate, and it needs to have nutrition and exercise and things like that. If you're constantly plugged in, or you've got your screens on for a good percentage of the day, even if you're you're wearing it for 6, 7, 8 hours a day for work, and then you then just taking it off, well, you're going to sit there, and you need to have eaten stuff, you need to have drank something. So does that mean we sort of got to have IV drips? Does that mean we've got to have we've got to have food fed to us in liquid form through medical devices? How do we deal with exercise? I mean, I'm not the smallest person as it is, and I try and spend as much time away from my desk as I can, so I'm getting some exercise. How do we make that? How do we make sure that we're getting the exercise so we don't become massively overweight? Though I guess if we're moderating the amount we're eating and drinking because they come in through lines, then maybe that's a bit easier. But we see it, and go back to the film The Matrix, where they hit this in terms of muscle atrophy. If you're not moving around very much, your muscles aren't going to be used. Therefore, when you actually come to get up, or if we need to go and live in our real world, then your muscles are just going to have wasted away. We do have some specialism, some skills in that, because of what happens when you go into space as well. But fundamentally, toilet breaks. We've got to be able to deal with waste products of the body as well. So I mean, they're just a handful of them physical issues that we've got to deal with. I don't know. Is there some of the other issues that sort of pop out to you that you think we should be exploring?
Yeah, I do want to touch briefly. You mentioned that we kind of have some of these usability issues ironed down. There are some concerns that we need to think about from that perspective. And this is not one of those categories that we really had initially, but I do want to talk about it briefly. We have sort of these usability issues of, like, how do you navigate within these virtual spaces? How do you navigate within spaces? Is it intuitive enough to kind of point a cursor in that direction and move over in that direction, or is it are we eventually going to hook it up to our brains and have our brains control our avatar's motion through these environments? So there's a lot of other usability issues that we have to consider with some of these advances in technology if we truly want to get to sort of this metaverse immersive experience, feel like we're there type of thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot to still discover there, and we'll talk a little bit about this with the social issues, but then there's also the actual usability of how do you interact with other people? Do you go up to them and type in a space, or do you speak out loud? Is there proximity chat where you can hear others in close proximity to you? Are there ways to mute other people? Are there ways to sort of enhance some of your friends' volume as they're coming through? So there's a bunch of usability issues with that as well. And that I just wanted to touch on that because I think we kind of glossed over that, but there are those are just a few examples of many, many challenges that will have to be overcome if we truly want to get to the point where we're jacking in a plug to our brain and being able to interact with this virtual world, right? And I know conceptually the metaverse, we just talked about it, is not quite there in maturity yet, but I think that's where a lot of people see it going.
Yeah. And you're right, that whole interface to how we plug into it, everybody immediately thinks of the Matrix, where you're going to have this big probe in the back of your head. I mean, the practicalities of such an interface. I mean, brain HCI is becoming a growing field at the moment. But I think just that that element of how do you actually physically. So really, you want to stop using any sort of peripheral devices. You want just direct communications, which is that whoever nails that straight off, that will be the massive game changer.
Yeah, we have a couple other categories here. You want to talk about mental health?
Yeah, I mean, the mental health of people is going to be really pros and cons with this to a certain extent, because one of the things is, well, we could easily disconnect with reality. And therefore, if you constantly are in the metaverse, and that means that you're curating your own version of reality at any one time, because you'll only talk to the people you want to talk to, you'll only see what you want to see, and therefore you don't get challenged. And therefore, will you be as where will your mental health robustness be? Where will it come from? But by the same token, all those things that almost depress us in real life, everything from physical appearance to what you look like. I mean, one of the issues that have come out around sort of Facebook and Instagram and things like that is the drive, particularly for young women, to look certain ways. And actually, this is where one this thing could help, because along that idea, rather than having to apply filters all the time, you're going to have your own avatar, and that avatar can be whatever it is that you want it to be. So you can be who you want to be more so than who you are. So this could work in really two ways. I just worry that that there will be a disconnect between your true mental state and your projected mental state,
your identity. And I mean, this is happening now. This is happening now with people who catfish other people. They are in some cases embodying these other profiles on dating websites that they feel more accurately represents who they are as a person, and they're using that as a way to connect with other individuals, to kind of bypass the physical attraction that happens between two people, or to hack it in a way, so that way they kind of get in to have a conversation with them. And it can be incredibly destructive in some cases. And that is something that we'll have to consider moving into this, virtual environment, this metaverse, where, the way that we interact with others is going to be very different, because I think in some ways, when we interact with people here now in reality, we have sort of an intuition around whether or not that person is being truthful or dishonest. And this is a lot of different psychological factors that goes into this, like body language, or oh, you're writing it in the notes now. I mean, we could jump into social issues too. Let's do it, because we're talking about it, right? I'm talking about catfish. Let's talk about the social issues and how these relationships that you're having with other people, are they real? I don't know. You'll have to kind of approach this virtual metaverse with the lens of, I can't trust anybody who I'm talking to, and I can't know for sure who I'm talking to. But if everyone's jacked into the metaverse and everyone's living there, then then how do you deal with these differences in identity? Where do you even have a physical identity at that point, or are you just existing online? This is a really complex thing to think about, and the way that we interact as humans is going to be fundamentally different in a virtual space than it would be in a physical space, because we won't have all those biological markers that we have in real space, right? We won't see somebody else sweating when they're lying. We won't see their eyes shifting in different directions. We won't see them fidgeting. All this stuff is hidden in a virtual environment. And so that's a lot that we have to consider. I mentioned that in terms of body language, right? People gesticulate with their hands while they're talking. I'm, exhibit A. I'm over here gesticulating with my hands. And so I think, in terms of how we interact with people, there's going to be a difference. There's also sort of the ability to be connected with others in a way and at a scale that we as humans are not built to do, right? I think we're already seeing this with stuff like social media. We are connecting with others at a scale that we were not biologically evolved to do. I can send out a tweet from the Human Factors cast Twitter, and it will reach many people. And it's kind of crazy to think about that we didn't have that type of environment as we were evolving as humans. And so that's a whole nother world in which we have to consider, is how do we communicate at scale? It's still something that we have to figure out. And how do we sort of interact with people at scale? Was there anything else from that social issues that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I guess just to expand on a couple of bits, when we interact with people, we sort of maybe picked up on some negative bits, but it's one of the things I found during the pandemic is I give a lot of presentations and stuff online now. And if I give a live presentation, if you give a live presentation in front of a room, you can read the room.
Right.
You know whether people are taking things in. They're either nodding along with you, or they're frowning, and you maybe take that as a cue. Maybe you haven't got your point over quite right, or you can skip over some stuff, or that type of thing. You just can't get that when you're presenting just to a screen. If you've got people with their cameras, they're all switched off, and all you're doing is presenting to a bunch of letters. You don't get the same sort of feedback loop that you had. But also, I guess there's catfish is a really good example as well, because actually how do we build romantic relationships in the metaverse that are real and meaningful? Actually, I watched one of my first episodes of Catfish the other day, and that was an eye-opening experience. And surely this idea of the metaverse is just going to make that potentially more prevalent. But then, is the relationship false if it works in your head and if you never meet that other person on the other side? Is that relationship demeaned in any way if it isn't truly what you think it is, but as long as as long as it is to you what you think it is?
Right.
That's a deeper question.
I think this is a great kind of segue to a question that we got in the chat here from Derica. Do you feel that this would fall into a separate sector for human factors professionals? I think there's a lot of underlying psychological issues here that we have to consider. But do you think this falls into a separate sector for human factors professionals, or do you think it falls under that VR umbrella?
I don't think it necessarily falls into a separate category, separate sector. I do think that there is scope in the short term for it to be its own sector, its own beast, because it's going to be so novel. It's going to have such a coalescing of issues that actually we need to be able to address them all with a real focus on it. But actually, all of the issues that will come up, and a lot of the attributes that we need to deal with, from usability to environmental to social to mental to physical, we already do that as HR professionals already, in the different sectors that we have, and in the different competencies. But I think there is definitely an angle of having a focus whilst it matures. If you still consider it in its infancy, then we should probably have a good laser-like focus on it to make sure that we're at the forefront of what's going on with it.
Yeah, I think from kind of an initial perspective, I think this is kind of a stem out of the virtual environments. If you're looking at like HFES, they have a technical group focused on virtual environments. I think this could be a good segue from that, maybe where the seminal research will stem from. But I tend to agree with you, Barry, that if this does truly become more prevalent, this might just live under that virtual environments umbrella. Maybe that umbrella gets bigger, and we try to figure out how to do all these interaction with all these different social issues, environmental issues, control issues, all this stuff. I think there are different technical groups or subsections, proficiencies of human factors that already contribute a lot to this. And if we're really talking about an Earth 2.0, or like a separate environment in which we engage in, I don't know if it really makes sense to do that. It could, but I just don't know. I think we're still so far in the infancy that I can't see that far out. That's a great question. Thank you for that one. I really appreciate that. Let's get into some of these environmental issues. Do you want to talk about this one since I took social issues?
Yeah, so I mean, the environmental really is about, on a day-to-day basis, we interact with our physical environment. We touch it, we taste it, and all that sort of stuff. And the environment thrives or otherwise because of our interaction with it. What happens to the environment when we spend all of our time inside of a virtual environment? What happens to our real physical environment? On the face of it, we neglect the day-to-day responsibility for our physical environment, but also that the virtual environment requires a certain amount of physical attributes for it to run. So just to generate the power if everybody's hooked into the metaverse, that's going to require a certain amount of basic needs, electrical production. Where's all that going to come from if everybody's jacked into the metaverse? So there's it's that symbiotic or lack of symbiotic relationship with the real environment that I think we're going to have to look at. That could be interesting, and I don't know quite what that is. I think it's just an issue that we need to be aware of.
Here's what we do. We just get to a point where we can control robots in the physical environment with our virtual selves, and then we can just kind of build stuff up around us while we're all plugged in, right?
Genius,
And
yes.
that also, sorry, not to get back to social issues, but that also poses another problem for humankind. If we're all in this metaverse, how do we reproduce and keep the human population stable?
Yeah.
That is also another issue that would have to be looked at.
Back to the Matrix.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a real fundamental issue with all of this as well, which is who controls it. Who's let's talk about like democracy. Let's talk about world power, world control. Because if everybody's in this metaverse, who's fundamentally running the metaverse? Who has responsibility for it? How does democracy represent itself in a metaverse? Is it right that one company, or a small handful of companies own not only the data that you're putting into it and reacting with it, but the fundamental principles behind it and can control what's, because they would literally have godlike control of your life, of your working environments, of your, all that sort of stuff, and could make it all end in literally a keystroke. So where does democracy apply to this? Where's your privacy rights? And how do we stop abuse of power? I mean, it's hard enough to stop abuse of power in the physical world at the moment. Never mind a metaverse. I just see a whole load of physical controls, a whole lot of political issues that should come front and center with this and ask the so what question.
Yeah, this is a good point, and I think right now, there's definitely one company who has a very strong vision on this, but I think generally the way in which the metaverse has to come out and sort of evolve, I think, has to be natural, and I think it has to be a contribution from many different sources for this very reason, right? And everything needs to be able to play nice together from a technology and infrastructure standpoint, to the point where we are making sure that humans come first, that those privacy concerns are checked at the door. We say, hey, you're entering this new space, and here's everything that we need from you. We need biological data. We need, all the stuff that could potentially be read into the environment. And so we want to make sure that that is salient as human factors professionals. We want to make sure that that information is salient and communicated effectively, and that the people who are interacting with those spaces understand who's in control and who has sort of admin privileges of being able to kick you out of that environment or restrict your access to the stuff. Democracy is an interesting one, because we're thinking from a Western perspective, and a democracies might not work for every culture, and so that's another thing that you have to think of, is like what type of governments do exist in these environments. Are they truly democratic, or are they some sort of communist state where you have one person that dictates everything, right? I don't know. It's a question that needs to be explored in that space, and maybe it's a way for people to almost remove themselves from geographical borders.
Mm-hmm.
That might be an interesting case study where maybe you have somebody that's living in one country that's jacked into the metaverse, but then they're kind of living within the political structure of another digitally. It's a whole complicated thing that needs to be thought out. Yeah, I think these are all really interesting points, and definitely some of these human factors issues that we really need to iron out before we get to that point where we are living in the metaverse.
Yes. And suddenly realize afterwards, oh, we should have really thought about that one.
Yeah, it's kind of like I see this as kind of following the same trajectory as a facial recognition, where it's like, we can do this. Should we do this? We should have thought about this before we did this. And I think, you know, we're kind of following that same trajectory, and that's why it's so important to include human factors into these stages at the early stages of design, especially for these almost life-changing or societal changing technologies. You have a point here about our experience with the VR and the metaverses. Do we want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I guess it's just to highlight that that this idea of a metaverse isn't new as such, or certainly VR environments isn't new. You know, anybody who's had to go on the Oculus Quest or Oculus Rift as the other bit. I've got not the Oculus Quest 2, and I think it's quite good fun when I remember to use it. Sometimes it can sit on the side for ages before I'm like, oh, actually, I enjoy using that. Beat Saber is one of my favorite games, but then, you know, I've played with some other bits that are really interesting. But then Second Life was supposed to be the big thing. It was going to be everyone's doing concerts in Second Life. The BBC was doing, in the UK, was doing, you know, big things in Second Life, and it was going to be the that amazing thing. And it didn't. It wasn't. It was large. I wasn't never really that impressed. But then Minecraft at the moment, you know, a good 8-bit representation of an environment that kids like to play in, and you know, I like playing in there as well. It's good, it's simple, you can do what you think. Is that a metaverse in its own right?
You also have Fortnite too.
Yeah, you got
right, because they're having the virtual conferences, they're having these other events, right? Like they showed the first trailer for episode 9 for the first time in an interactive form in Fortnite, and they have all these different characters in it. So that is kind of what I think of the closest thing to our idea of the metaverse right now. And then of course you have Facebook, and they're trying to make their Meta, formerly Facebook, trying to put their spin on it too. This last point, I'm glad you put in virtual conferences.
Just go and spin back to one of our one of the previous episodes where we talked about virtual conferences at length. But then, I mean, yeah, quite good that. But fundamentally, I mean, I guess one of the ones that I'd pull out would be the Neuroergonomics conference that they had their representation. It was probably the closest meta experience that you would have. We're doing that because it included a lot more. It wasn't just watching presentations; it was much more about the interaction and stuff. So, yeah, we kind of get in there. Is there any of the other VR environments that stand out to you that we maybe haven't mentioned that you feel worthy of a name check?
I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of disparate virtual reality experiences that you've had, but I think to me the main difference is going to be having everything connected and being able to jump seamlessly from one to another in a way that makes sense, feels good, feels intuitive, and addresses all these issues that we talked about. So with that said, let's kind of revisit the question here, or the sort of thesis of this article that we're citing here from Futurism. The experts are saying that someday people will live in the metaverse their entire life. Barry, do you think this is the case after we've talked about all these human factors issues that need to be resolved? Do you think? No.
I think that we will end up spending. I think that our interaction with the internet, our interaction with each other over the digital stream will change. It will adapt. It will become more seamless. that we will step into an environment and that will work. I think the usability of it will become a lot more fluid. It will become much easier to do. But I still think we will have our online and our offline lives. I think there is, whilst in the short term or as it gets more mature and there's still the novelty factor there, I think we will spend a chunk of time online. But overall, after say maybe 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, we will then find a balance between the online and the offline. What about you? What do you think? Do you see yourself being plugged in all of the time and not having to come up for air?
Not in my lifetime. Hundreds of years from now, maybe, right? When we figured out all these other issues to where we don't really necessarily have to be a physical entity anymore. Maybe we just at birth download our brains to the metaverse and then, our bodies die off, but we live virtually.
One interesting, I've just had a brain thought. It doesn't happen often, so I want to make sure it's recorded for posterity. Is we've talked in the past about going to Mars and going to different planets and stuff. Would the metaverse be the answer for how we still communicate over them very large space, very large distances? And the way to, if you've actually got family who's went off to Mars and that type of thing, is this the way that we would actually make sure that families stay together?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we'd have to solve the issue of the time delay, right? If we can get quantum computing down where, a change happens in real time across a distance that's, we're getting into physics here, but a change happens near simultaneously across vast distances, then I think that we can get there. But that's a physics problem, and we're Human Factors Cast, so let's move on. Well, huge thank you to our patrons and the general public this week for our topic, and thank you to our friends over at Futurism for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to the original articles on our weekly roundups on our blog. You can also join us on our Slack or Discord for more discussion on these stories. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. Especially want to thank our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patron, Michelle Tripp. One thing that we don't do very often here in this little, I hesitate to even call it an advertisement. It is a public service announcement that this is a free service for you all. We have a merch store. We have some neat designs over there. That includes It Depends t-shirts. It's almost like I planned this, and I did not. I swear I did not. We have the It Depends t-shirts. We have a show logo. I have a hoodie somewhere with it on it. Other cool designs based on Human Factors culture. Like I'm going to Human Factors the shit out of this, and other fun things that you can get to both support the show and look good doing it. So there you go, Treasurer. I said something other than Patreon, but yes, we do want to thank all our patrons and people who buy our merch. Keep the show running. So thank you all so much for your continued support. We're going to go ahead and switch gears and get into this next part of the show we like to call...
It came from...
Yes, once again, this is the part of the show where we get into everything that the internet, the metaverse, if you will, topics that they bring us, right? And you know what? If you find these answers useful, no matter where you're watching, just give us a like, help other people find this content. It's really helpful. We have 3 tonight. The first one up here is going to be from the Discord. This is the second week in a row. We've had a really good question from the Discord, so I want to make sure that we get to this one. This is by Deep Sea Hippo, and they write, what are your all's opinions on attending an accredited versus not accredited Master's HFES program? Barry, I'm going to pass this over to you because you are somebody who attended not graduate school, and so or you don't have that experience. And so, what is your experience? Maybe hiring others that have been to an accredited institution versus not. Does it matter?
Yeah, so it was interesting because when I did my bachelor's degree, it was in engineering. It wasn't in human factors, and it wasn't a course that was accredited by the institute I wanted to get chartered by. So it basically meant that when I come to do my chartership, I had to do, jump through a whole lot of hoops. And really, that's fundamentally what it boils down to for me. Is if you're going to go, certainly in the UK, we would talk about the CIHF accredited degree, and if you want to go on and get your full membership for the CIHF, now I'm assuming HFES is similar, but particularly if you want to get your full membership, or you want to get your chartership, which you can get in the UK, then having the accredited degree makes your life a bit easier later on, because it means that the institute knows what the components of that degree was. But fundamentally, later on, it really doesn't matter as much. I think if you as an employer, if I know that you've come from you've got a human factors degree, and does it matter if it's been a CHF accredited one or an HFES accredited one? It's useful, but it's not the be all and end all, I think. Yeah, he's waving around his "it depends" t-shirt, but it kind of does. I don't think it makes a difference for jobs. I'll say that, because we would talk to you anyway, and it's really about what you do and what you've done, not necessarily just the nature of your degree. I think it's about where you want to go with your professional qualifications. That it could make life a bit easier for you, but it actually, in the grand scheme of things, if you want to get to a certain level, it's not going to block off any options for you. It might just mean you have to do a bit more work further down the line.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. I think from the HFES side, you're right. Where if they are accredited, then they do have a certain rigor or certain standards associated with them, and so there is sort of a mutual understanding of what you've been through, what you've studied, and where you're coming from. I think you're absolutely right there. It doesn't necessarily matter long term. I think experience is going to have a bigger role in that. And ultimately, your specialty is going to play the biggest role in where you go. And so if there's a program that makes more sense because it's more focused on your specialty and less on human factors, then do that. I think there are some other benefits to having a program that's accredited. Let's say if you wanted to work your way up the organizational hierarchy ladder, you can certainly start at an accredited institution by becoming like a lower, starting at a lower position, like a note taker, official note taker of the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society, your university division or whatever it is, right? And then you slowly work your way up. Oh, president of that division, and then you can use that to kind of leverage yourself into the professional environment. And there are tons of opportunities for networking events and other get-togethers that happen at these conferences that I think are another kind of unspoken resource available to being able to I guess integrate with others from that community. So it just makes the friction, it makes it not frictionless, but there's less friction with trying to integrate into the society at large. If you want HFES to be your home, other people call other conferences and organizations home, but for us human factors practitioners, right, HFES, Chartered Institute, I think those ones are the ones that are typically looked at, IEA, from those perspectives. You want to look at those, right? Get your foot in the door there. I think that's kind of the biggest benefit to doing an accredited versus not accredited program. But ultimately, I am going to point to my shirt again. It does depend on sort of what your trajectory is for your path. If you want to study something that's very specific, that's outside of that accreditation, don't rule it out, because you can always become a member of that society. And it's not like they're going to look down on you for going to an institution that wasn't HFES accredited. It's a different set of coursework.
Yeah. Most people won't know, to be fair.
Yeah,
so.
Honestly. Yeah. All right. Getting on to this next one here. This one's by Jack on the user experience subreddit. Staff designers is the name, but this is more question about role titles. So let's get into it. Is retaining your title important to you in your next role? So they go on to write staff UX product designer is a relatively new title. Many companies don't seem to have paths fleshed out beyond senior. Are you accepting other offers with different job titles so long as the pay is comparable, or looking at specific roles, even if it limits the number of organizations or companies that you can apply to? So let's talk about job titles, Barry. Is that important to you?
No. It's different now. I mean, I was reflecting on this the other day because when I was in a larger organization, then yes, I did I joined as I think it was a senior, and then worked up to, what was that, junior, then senior, then a principal, then a senior principal, before, and it was important to me at that point to know that I was working up a ladder. And then you look at principal and you sort of think principal in one organization is the same as principal in another, though actually probably isn't.
Right.
They're probably a different set of standards. It's just a title at the end of the day. And then I obviously launched my own company, and actually my title now, I'm a managing director, but I'm also chief cook, bottle washer. It's almost everything going. The
supreme leader,
and the person who cleans up after everybody. So it's I don't care about my job title because my perspective has changed, and I've noticed that with a lot of sort of freelancers as well. If you're one-man band contracting, then actually the title to them doesn't really matter as much, as long as they're doing the work that they enjoy and the pay is right for them on that period. So I think it going from job to job, I don't think it should matter too much. But I guess if you're in the going, trying to work up a company, work up your career that way, then yes, I could see that it would have an importance to you. But I don't think it's important outside of it. If you took a step back, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it could help you with sort of advancing to a higher position somewhere else. But talk about what you do, not about what you're labeled as. And I tend to agree that labels are just that. They're our best approximation of what a job encapsulates, and it doesn't always do a good job of doing that. And again, they're not standardized across companies. So talk about what you do or what you've done, and don't talk about the label. That's yeah. I have nothing else to add. Last one here. This is by Caleb Colorado on the Human Factors subreddit. This is desperate for help with a statement of purpose. Hi, everyone. The time has come, and I'm beginning to wrap up all my graduate school applications for Human Factors Master's programs. The whole application process has been smooth for me. Good for you. With the exception of writing my statement of purpose. Arguably the most important part of my application. While I do have a rough draft worked out, I really don't think it's very good. I've never had to write a statement of purpose before, and honestly, I'm not even sure what a good statement of purpose even looks or sounds like. Let's see here. Basically, Barry, I want to use this as a springboard here to talk about statements of purposes and what they mean and what they look like. Have you written one of these?
Yeah, I've not written them in the graduate school application piece. I cheated to a certain extent, and because I was in the military at the time, I had the choice of one university, so I didn't really have to apply. I just rocked up and said, well, hey, I'm here. Slightly more than that, but that was basically it. But when I'm, it's not too dissimilar to your opening statement on your CV or your covering letter on a job application. It's all about, for me, is be honest with yourself and with what you're doing. So what is it you're wanting to get out of? What is it you're wanting to get out of life fundamentally? And this is where I think it's getting interesting, because what I would have written at sort of 18 to what I would write now is different. I mean, I'm lying actually, because I did write a statement of purpose a couple of years ago when I was toying around with the idea of a PhD, and the ability to sort of sit there and say, look, this is kind of where I could be very, very honest and say, look, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do, which is not what I would have written at 18, which at 18, you would more write about what you think they want to read, as opposed to now what it is you know, what you want to write. Because, and fundamentally, I would like to go down the latter route, because as somebody who would read these things, you want to get an insight into the person. You want to get an insight into what are their hopes, dreams, that type of thing, to see if they marry up with your business, your course, your organization. And if they're very honest and you realize that it isn't going to work, you could actually cut out a lot of pain right there and then for both sides.
Doing them a favor.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go and build rockets and go to the moon. Well, I'm sorry, but I do drilling. You're not going to go to the moon by come to join my business, but I could probably point you in the right direction of somebody who could. Yeah, so I think that, I think be honest with yourself is so important with these things. What about you? You've had more experience of doing these things than I have.
Look, I wrote one for my graduate applications. I echo your sentiment. I would have done things very different today than I would have then, because I did exactly what you said. I wrote it from the perspective of like, oh, I'm writing this for what they want to hear. And it wasn't untruthful. It was just a flowery version of what I wanted. And really, it's hard to know when you're just starting your sort of experience. Like Human Factors was a completely, not different, but it was I was in psychology in my undergrad, and so I was writing it from like I have no idea what Human Factors is perspective, and it.
Oh, Andy's stalled right there. It looks like his camera. The fact that he hadn't. Oh, is he back?
Oh, I'm probably back.
You're
anyway,
back. You
the point here. Sorry, the point is that I was applying to different things, and I was writing it to be generic, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And that was probably the biggest piece of advice, is maybe iron out what you want to do exactly, because that might have better. Although, leave yourself open. I don't know. It's hard. Statement of purpose is hard.
So I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So yeah, I'm down with that.
All right. Well, let's get into this next part of the show. It needs no introduction. It's just one more thing. Let's see here. So, Barry, what is your one more thing this week?
So I had a really cool experience today, and which was kind of fits into the metaverse thing, because I did a present. I've been doing this work around climate ergonomics, which I've mentioned before, but I presented to ergonomists and human factors practitioners in Iran. And what a fantastic experience of being able to present to around 200 practitioners, and through using the wonders of the internet to make that happen. What was fascinating for me, though, was I'm really rubbish at engaging with other languages. I'm trying to learn Welsh at the moment, but my ability to pick up other languages is terrible, and I am appalled with myself. These are all people who their first language is Persian, and they were taking on board what I was saying. And I was talking for a good hour and a half to 2 hours worth, and they were firing me questions and all this sort of stuff. And I was just like, I was completely blown away, A, by their enthusiasm, and B, the ability to comprehend what was going on in a foreign language, with just so many of them. It was an incredible experience. And then since that, they've invited me to their WhatsApp groups and this, that, and the other, and they're all taking the time out because they're all writing in Persian. But then when I sort of jumped in, they all switched to English, and they're welcoming me in English. And I was completely blown away by the whole thing and the way how welcoming they made me feel. So it was a brilliant experience today.
That's good. I'm glad you had a brilliant experience. Now I'm gonna pull a play out of the Barry playbook here, and do two more things, because I have two, I guess, exciting updates here. So first off, I'm Thanos over here, and I'm collecting my infinity gauntlet of health improvements. So if you're following the show, I've been making marginal improvements. I think, I mentioned my mental health on a couple episodes ago. Physical health, I'm seeing a chiropractor now, physical therapy. So the musculoskeletal side of things is getting taken care of. I went to the doctor for my physical health for the first time in a couple years today. Had a dental appointment yesterday, and last week I had a vision. I got new glasses, and so I feel like, I just need to snap, and I am getting myself on the right trajectory, turning the ship around. So by the time I'm 60, it's not I'm not underwater. The second thing, anyway, that whole said to just treat yourself, do yourself a favor and just get a good team of people around you to help you with some of these things that maybe you're not taking note of, like myself. Second thing, I have a bed story. Do you want to hear the bed story?
Oh, go on then.
Okay, the bed story. So as a Christmas gift to myself and my wife, we said, okay, no gifts this year. What we're doing is we're buying a bed instead, because we've had this other bed for 7 years, and we were expecting the delivery on last Friday, so right after the show, right? And then we got the message it was delayed. Okay, well, that's fine. We were expecting to do everything on Saturday. So the new bed included a new frame, a new headboard, 2 side tables, a new mattress, new pillow, the whole everything. We wanted to upgrade our sleep. And so that last Saturday, we took apart the old frame and looked under the bed. There was black mold. So we got to throw this thing out right now. And then we get a message saying, oh, your mattress is delayed. So that night I was like, okay, I don't want to deal with it. We're going to go sleep at a hotel, and then hopefully it'll be here tomorrow. It wasn't there tomorrow, so we slept on an air mattress here. It wasn't here the following day, so we slept on an air mattress for 2 nights, a hotel for 1 night. But the bed is here. Everything's all set up. It's wonderful, and we're very happy we did it. So it's very comfortable. And that's my one more thing this week.
Yay.
Well, that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion around virtual reality, I'll encourage you all to go listen to episode 216. That's where we talk about how virtual reality could be the key to learning. You'll have to go and listen to that episode to see if it is. Comment wherever you're listening on what you think of the story this week for more in-depth discussion. You can always join us on our Slack or Discord communities, and you can visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. 1, leave us a 5-star review. That's free for you to do. 2, you can tell your friends about us. That is also free for you to do. And if you want to throw money at us, you can always support us on Patreon or buy our merch. That's something you can do too. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to learn about Arabic?
Yeah, if you want to find out more about what we've been doing, then you can look at my Twitter, which is at Baz_K, or listen to my interviews on my podcast, which is 1202, the Human Factors Podcast, at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me sometimes on Twitch for office hours and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
it depends.
All right, and we're into the post show. I think that went just over an hour.
I would say was that not bang on the money?
I think it was just over. It's okay. I'll do some editing.
That's because you had 2 more. What more?
I know. I had the 2 more things.
Yeah.
Hey, so while we were recording, I had a delivery that came in through my little hole.
Sneaky. What is that?
This is a Dutch Brothers drink. It's a blended drink,
right?
And it's got energy drink in there, and it's like a bunch of different syrups, and probably really unhealthy, but delicious.
Going back to your teeth thing, that's not going to be helping at all.
I'll brush them right after this.
I've really got into I was really bad that I had a just before the show tonight, I had a Chinese takeaway.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since I've had Chinese takeaway, but then I just forgotten just how thirsty they make you feel.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been drinking my water, and I'm like, a good 3/4 of a liter through my water already. Just with all the breaks in the show, I've been like chugging my water. So yes, it's been a one of them weeks where we're doing quite a lot, and then just trying to fit food in and stuff has been a challenge. But,
yes, it was very challenging. Very challenging.
I thought that was a fun show. There was
that was a great show. That was a ton of fun, and to have that live audience participation. Thank you if you're still watching, Derica. Thank you for chatting with us.
In some ways, I did tag in a friend of mine, Bob Stone, who's a guru when it comes to VR and AR and all things meta in the UK. He was lecturing on sort of VR and AR, before it was cool and all that sort of stuff. And he's really good fun to connect with on LinkedIn, because any and every story that comes up about VR and AR and about somebody who's trying to make a big claim that isn't, he's all over it. And he's very much of the, I was doing that 20 years ago. I was doing that 30 years ago. That's not even a thing. That's complete rubbish. And I just love it because he's just so incredibly honest. If what you're doing is a pile of rubbish, he's very happy to tell you that, because he's been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt. In fact, he probably coded the t-shirt in VR to begin with.
So would you say, like, the headline that Futurism should have gone with is experts predict that the metaverse is rubbish, or living your life in the metaverse is rubbish?
Yeah, pretty much. It'll be, I mean, I don't know. I can see a really good 50-50 thing, because I get quite excited by the idea of a brain HCI. I think that's what makes. I just like the idea of being able to almost like I said, jack into whatever interface it is you're using and make that work. But I just think, from a technical perspective, I think the challenges are so vast that makes it exciting. But then I know what it's like, me thinking in my head at the moment that whilst, even doing this, we're talking on the show, but I'm also like what's going on at home? What am I doing here? What are we doing there? I've just seen a note of something I forgot to do the other day. When we're looking at controlling the metaverse, ourselves in the metaverse through a brain HCI, how do we stop all the other random rubbish that I'm thinking creeping in and getting out? Because most people think I'm reasonably sane, but they don't see what's going on inside my head at any given moment. And surely with the brain HCI, it's just going to leak out everywhere. That's my fear.
Yeah. How do you protect that?
Or how do you protect everybody else from that?
Yeah.
More important, people might actually find out what I think about them, and that's scary in itself. It's but and then we might get down to that whole thing of is it what certain countries have been doing, where you get the social scores and things like that.
Yeah,
and you're just there. It's going to happen. It's well, that's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. Sorry, I'm perusing Twitter trending section to see if there's anything fun we could talk about. I'm not seeing NFTs. How do you feel about NFTs?
Oh, I don't get it. Maybe it's just because I've been sort of because I think we were chatting about them in the lab, and I was chatting about them with because my daughter's into art and stuff, so I was chatting with her about it, and so I've had to do a bit of reading up about what NFTs really are, and how they fit with the blockchain and all this sort of stuff. And I cannot believe some of the prices that some things are selling for one, but also it just isn't a thing. I just don't get why people are spending so much money on something that's so easily copied. That I just fundamentally don't get why it's such a cool thing. I think it's a bit of Emperor's New Clothes. Whereas I think when people actually truly look and say, look, it really isn't a thing, and then people have lost loads of money.
Yeah, I get the criticism, and I share it for a lot of things. Like, I don't know, if I were to share a so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm thinking like, hey, well, what if we did Human Factors Cast NFTs for our community members? So like our Patreons or our Discord members, Slack members, that type of thing. And they'd be kind of fun collectibles, right? I'm looking at like carbon neutral options. But the idea is that, hey, you were a Patreon during the year of 2021. So we're going to give you a digital token.
Yeah.
A digital token of a picture that says you are. And to me, that becomes a little bit more valuable when you have some sort of proof. And I guess they could resell it if they wanted to. Right. Like, let's say someone finds us, 10 years from now, and they're like, oh, I want the 2022 badge. They can buy it from somebody, even though it's not, they weren't. They can buy it from somebody and have their collection. I get that.
But I can see that I see that slightly different, because that has intrinsic value to you as the collector, as the recipient of it. So you couldn't say that you were a member of the lab in 2021 unless you were a member of the lab in 2021, and that's a thing that you've had for that. It'd be same get a pin badge. Yes, I could, if I got a pin badge being, say, host, I could go give that to anybody else, but it wouldn't mean that they've been a host,
right? So but you could sell it to somebody. Yes, you could sell that badge to somebody. If it's worthless to you, it might be worth something to somebody. Be like, oh, this is Barry Kirby's badge. He was a host. And I have it. It's digital proof that I have it.
And that's the value of that, coupled with the story behind it. So, which I get that it's like any collectible to a certain extent. The provenance behind where it come from gives it value.
So this is why I understand where we're going with NFTs. I understand that the value associated with that digital identity is the true value. And take the Bored Ape NFT that's selling for ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah.
Right? That it's because it was, I think the story behind it is it's one of the first NFTs, and it's been through several different owners, and so there's some pedigree associated with it. And then it was sold at a really low price accidentally, and then it was sold. There's a story behind it, and
high price. Yeah.
It keeps coming up in the news, and to say that you own that,
yeah, I guess it is that. I guess the.
So all this to say, it's still like really confusing, and you could right click and download that image, but to say that you have the digital ownership over something, like,
and I think that's where the difference is, isn't it? Because so say you went and you buy the Mona Lisa, pick any other famous art, you can get a copy of any art and have a print of it in your house, and it's technically the same. You're looking at roughly the same thing, and there is a difference between owning a print and owning the real thing, normally many millions of dollars. But I guess I've always been this is going to really, as long as my daughter doesn't hear this, then I'm okay. Given her drive to be an artist, then I sometimes don't see the difference between owning the real thing and owning a copy of the print of. I probably just don't give it the value that it's worth, or I don't want to pay that. I don't know. I can see why. I mean, people collect stuff for all sorts of different reasons. I can sort of see why that would work. I just see it just feels overhyped to a certain extent when you include, the element that you've sort of shown is you've got the digital ownership, blah blah blah. But then the way that they've integrated it into the blockchain and stuff like that seems just huge overkill.
No, I don't think so. Because look at it from this perspective. I'm not trying to sell anybody on NFTs, and I'm not fully on board either. I'm just I'm fully arguing from a devil's advocate perspective now. Because I'm skeptical too. But take something like, okay, we're talking about the metaverse in this episode, right? Take a digital object that exists in the metaverse that there's only one of. Let's say it's like a weapon for a video game or something, right? Like you have this rare sword that you've bought, you've purchased. No one else in the metaverse has it. No one else in the metaverse can have it because no one's blockchain is going to validate that they have it. Only you have that item in that metaverse. And so when somebody sees that you have the legendary sword of, Excalibur, whatever, everyone knows, oh shit, that's Excalibur, and that person has it. Holy shit, there's some digital like wealth and status associated with that thing. And if it's valued by other people in that community, let's say it gives some certain stats, percentage points, one hit kills monsters or whatever in any game that you're in the metaverse, that has all validated that you are the owner of this thing, somebody else can come in and buy that from you at a on the market. So I get it, right? Or let's say that there's only 10 in existence and that person has one of them.
That really works in the Ready Player One scenario, doesn't it? Because that's what they had all the way through it. There was a number of artifacts in there that were one-offs.
Yes,
and that's, I guess, how you'd validate that.
Yeah. So I get it. I get it from that perspective. When we talk about, images and works of art that already exist and having digital versions of those things, it becomes a little bit more nebulous to me.
Yeah.
But fully digital items, and with value associated with them, and a need to validate that you are in fact the owner of those, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it gives you a way. I mean, I guess what I sort of associated with it, because as you say, you've got some of them bits of art that are going around that I look at and I don't attribute any value to. Therefore, you then attribute the idea of NFT to have that same value, which is probably wrong on my behalf, because actually, if it was something that I cared about, as you say, if you were to produce something for the lab or something like that actually had value to what we were doing, then I would ascribe value to that and want that, and know that I've got my version of that. So yes, I guess when you put it like that, then it makes sense. I guess it's one of these technologies that's going to be interesting to see how it evolves, and used or abused. So I guess it's a kind of watch your space. But if you're going to do some NFTs, then I want one.
I will give you one. Look, I'm looking at it because it's just like, it'd be kind of cool to give to the members of our community as like, hey, here is proof that you were a member in this year at this time.
Yeah.
And,
where do you trade that on then? Because Ethereum's the one that everybody seems to use, but it's not the only one, is it? There's a bunch of other NFT marketplaces.
Yeah, I don't know. I have honestly, I received an NFT the other day for being an AMC stockholder.
Oh, there you go.
And I don't even remember what the service was that I signed up for.
The only one I was aware of is, and that's only because the research I did based off the back of the discussion that everyone was having in the lab was around Ethereum, because of the way that it's set up to do it. So, and that's on the back of it being a cryptocurrency and having an extra value element in there.
Wax.
Okay.
Is it wax? I don't know what that is. There's a wallet that shows my NFTs, and I don't know if hang on. I'm gonna see if I can pull this up, but I don't know if I share anything about it, if it will like.
So part of me says that you shouldn't do that, but then part of me says, I'm intrigued to see if anybody hacks you really quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think it's if because again in the reading I was doing, the NFTs are specifically ascribed to one-off things, so it's not like you're gonna have it's got to be limited in some way. It's not just money, or it's not just like runs of objects selling things. It is that's why it's, I think, so popular in art, because it is one-off items that have been produced for a specific thing.
I guess this has my. Well, I only have one thing on here, and it looks like there's some tokens here, and I don't want to show those publicly, just in case, because I don't know what I'm doing here.
Chicken.
But I can show you. Let's see here. I don't know if I can hide this or not. Let me just. I guess it's in my wallet address, so people can send me stuff. I am going to attempt to hide this really quick, and I will show you what I'm looking at here that has no identifying information.
I'll say if you screenshot out the bits, I guess.
Yeah, I could do that, but here's what I'll do. That's too much for me to do. Look, here's my one single NFT that I have. Let me share my screen with you all. And for our Patreon listeners, I'll describe it. So it's a little. It looks like a GIF that says "I own AMC," and it's just going back and forth. And it says Series 1. I'm number 3,265 out of 580,025.
So it's the number that makes it unique for you.
It is the number, right?
Yeah. Okay,
and there's a digital thing, right? I can gift this to somebody. I can trade it or transfer it. And it looks like, at least in this wallet, I don't know. There's different wallets or any. I don't know enough about it. I'm just. So it looks like you can, purchase some buying power here, so that way you can buy your own NFTs on this dashboard, or anything like that. And anyway, this is my collection, my singular collection.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, so I am now an NFT owner.
I was going to say, I in many ways I could think of offering you lots of money for the NFT, but I'm not going to. Don't take that the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't know. So and it's verified. It does. There is a verification option, so you can I think I don't know if this is.
Isn't that the whole point, that verification must happen in the blockchain?
Well, I think so. I think what the verified is probably like the person who created it, and so the like this is created by AMC. And therefore, I can verify that AMC did create this, because I can imagine somebody else create something exactly like this with every single parameter identical except for their username, and they're not verified. And that would carry less weight than something that is verified. That's just my guess, right? So I can look at this and say, oh, yes, AMC Investor has created this, and it's mine now. Versus AMC Investor 2, and everything else could be identical, but it's not verified, and it doesn't carry the same weight. It's so weird, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's that raises a really good issue, actually, because if that's verifying the user as having produced it, or that person as having produced it, surely if you went as MC2, then MC2 could verify that they produced it, therefore it'd be verified. Right. Oh, I don't know. It's making my head hurt. Yeah, but I mean, again, this is cool stuff, isn't it? Because actually, it is new. It's interesting. It's clearly popular because it's making an awful lot of money over what you could say is rather random things. And you're going to get some stuff that is going to fail. I mean, it's a bit like. Well, that's again really where they were saying it. It's distinctly, it is like Bitcoin and the other type of cryptocurrencies, but not, because you're not, you're amassing objects, digital objects. You're not just amassing a number of the same thing, which currency. But the way that they utilize that blockchain, I find really quite cool and quite fascinating from a technology perspective, and it just doesn't make you think, what else could you ascribe blockchain to, and for it to be actually sensible and productive. Though I did read another article the other day that said that all blockchains, all cryptocurrencies are close to the bubble being burst, because they think that things could start collapsing in on themselves. But then I'm fairly sure they said that years ago as well.
They said that they keep saying that, right? And the truth is that nobody has any idea what's going to happen.
No, and then I actually made the person who made that comment to me. I sort of turned around to them and said, "Well, is that just being made by the banks who are losing out because of blockchain cryptocurrency, because the banks aren't involved in it? Therefore, because they've been some countries are starting to make cryptocurrencies illegal, which is
Well, I mean, my question is, what's changed? And nothing has changed. Fundamentally, you're still operating. These cryptocurrencies are still operating off of a blockchain technology, and so you have a verification process that is there. And fundamentally, some of these things, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, even are being used to pay for goods and services, and so there's some value associated with those digital currencies. And so fundamentally, nothing has changed except for public opinion and potentially world, global geopolitical consequences. And so, will it stop? Will the value will it lose value over those things? I don't know.
Well, it might be. I mean, that's how you get run on banks, isn't it? It's it's about public trust. As soon as public trust dissipates, then that's when everybody starts running to the bank and saying, I want all my money back. But the thing that fundamentally changes a cryptocurrency is banks are built on lending. That's the model. That's how banks work. Whereas a cryptocurrency doesn't work in the same way. Cryptocurrency is about currency and is about currency transfer.
Right.
And so it actually takes the basic business model of the bank and just says no. So I can sort of see where that happens. But then, and I don't know whether we've talked about this before, but did you ever hear about the story of OneCoin and One Life with the what they call the crypto queen? There's a really interesting set of podcasts. I think it was done by the BBC somewhere, but it's worth, if you Google, if you search on your podcast provider for crypto queen, there's a really good, I think it's about 12 or 13 episodes where they go and search for this woman who basically set up this idea of OneCoin, which was their own cryptocurrency, and it was going to go and take over the world. And people bought into it, and it ended up being one of these pyramid schemes. And actually, where they were saying it was the best, I think the terminology they used, it was going to be the best centralized distributed blockchain in the world. And it's like, you can't have a centralized distributed blockchain, that just doesn't work. But as this investigation happens, and basically that's what it is, it's reporting on in this investigation into the background of it, they find that actually the technology itself, they didn't actually have any technology. It was all just make believe. It was all hype. It was all just basically getting people to give up their cash to invest in OneCoin and all this sort of stuff, and it had no actual monetary value. And ends up being way deeper than you think. And they con people out millions and millions of pounds, millions of dollars out of it. It's worth having a listen to when you're bored. But it was all just a confidence trick.
So, looking at some of these other applications here, there's like Topps, like the card manufacturer, right? So, like if I wanted to collect Star Wars cards. And have NFTs associated with those digital versions of Star Wars cards.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Could do that, right? I own digitally this one of however many.
Could that act could your NFT act as almost like a security guarantee? So if you did own, say, a physical card or a physical piece of art or something, if you've also got the NFT associated with that, then if the physical thing gets stolen, then
right,
does it lose market value because it doesn't have the associated NFT to go with it to actually show complete proof of ownership?
That's a great point. You have, and I've always thought about that too, of like, well, if I get a physical copy, can I get a digital copy too? That's like, if I lose my DVDs or whatever, I have a digital code that I can go and watch it on whatever.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. It's like, if I have a physical card, can I get a digital version of that card to use in like any games that use it? Because like I own it. I've always wanted to do that. And I think like I don't know, at some point there was probably I seem to remember this, card games like on Game Boy used to have like little codes on the bottom right hand of cards that you could put them in, and that was kind of a non-verified version of verifying that you own a card, right? You can go online and look up any of the card numbers, but ideally, right, that would be cool, because then you could like associate it with an account, right? Like let's say Pokemon, right? You do Pokemon cards, and there's a Pokemon card game, and they come out with a new version every year or whatever, and you know, or Magic the Gathering, that's probably a little bit more popular TCG. So let's do that, right? You have Magic cards, and associated with each Magic card comes, or each pack comes with a NFT code that has every card in that pack, and you have a digital version of those, and it's linked up, and it has the numbers line up on the card with the NFT, but the code is separate, so that way that's verified. Anyway, you have all that, and then you could use those cards in any Magic the Gathering game that comes out, because it's verified that you own those in the physical environment.
And also, that will be super useful for if you use like deck builders and things like that. So actually, I haven't played Magic in like a couple of years, but I've still got too many boxes of them. But you'd be quite interested to sit there and say, right, I want to put a new deck together. What cards do I have? And you spend ages you get deck build wraps now, and you put the cards that you've got in there, and do they work together and all that sort of stuff. Actually, if you could just scan in which NFTs you've got, the links to the cards that you've got, then it could help you understand your library or your collection.
Or there's probably like some public service that will scan, your public facing wallet. So that way it goes, oh yeah, you have these cards. Here you go. How about this deck? This is you have every card in this deck.
Yeah. No, saying that, I did go through an episode where we, so a friend of ours, really good at building decks, and so they, I was like, okay, well, go, here you go. Here's a budget. Go and build me a deck that is whatever, and they went and they did, and they came back and I had this like proper killer deck, and didn't like it because I hadn't built it myself.
Right.
I used to have a Thopter deck, which was amazing. It was flying, and it was also, and it would just work. It was one of the first decks I put together. It's still my favorite deck.
Oh man, I had a poison deck that I really liked. Anyway, I think our time was up, because I have little people invading my space here.
Cool.
So
you need to go and do daddy duties.
I do. Well, hey, if you've been watching along with us, thank you for entertaining our conversation about NFTs and the metaverse and everything digital, I guess. So stay tuned for Human Factors Cast NFTs coming your way maybe soon. I don't know. I'm going to look into it. If you know anything about them, if you know anything about them, please join our Discord and let me know. I'd love to get something set up. But yeah, thank you, everyone. And
thank you indeed. We'll see you next time.
Yes.
Cool.
All right. Goodbye.